Hi, my name is Tara St. James, and I'm the production coordinator at the Pratt Institute Brooklyn Fashion and Design Accelerator, where we're currently standing. Today, we're going to be walking you through how to make a dress for one of our clients, Tabby Just. And Roberto and Brooke, who are two sample makers here in the production room, will be walking you through how to do that.
We usually roll the fabric with what we call the face of the fabric has to be facing up. And we're going to move the fabric in order to have straight lines so we can cut our garment. So now we are going to place the pattern on top of the fabric. But first, we are going to double check that the edges of the fabric go in a straight line all around, parallel to the edge of the table. And once we align the edges of the pattern with the edge of the fabric, we are going to place some weights to hold the pattern down so the fabric doesn't move when we pin. Now we are just going to finish pinning the pattern over the fabric. With lines like this, curved lines, we just need to be sure that we pin all along the line so the fabric doesn't move. Especially when we're working with silk, it's easier for the fabric to move around and we won't have a clean line. And with our hand we can smooth out any wrinkles so that when we cut, the fabric will go in a straight line. As you can see, we have laid out the patterns. This is the front and this is the back. We have pinned it all around and we place it in a way to waste the least possible of the fabric, since we are working with a zero waste pattern, and this is also an indication of the design. So start cutting. I'm going to just pick up a little bit of fabric. I'm going to start. Try not to move the fabric as much so we get a clean straight line. And if we have to, we can just hold it down with our hands. So as we continue cutting, we're gonna get to what we call a notch, which is a mark that we do on the pattern, and it needs to be cut a little bit onto the fabric, and that is gonna help us to place the pieces correctly and sew them correctly. So we're going to the neckline. Just need to be careful because it's a curve. Try not to move the fabric a lot so we don't alter the shape of the neckline. And if we need to, we can readjust our pins and continue from the other side. What am I doing? Okay, so now we're going to start talk about the steps that we need to follow to construct our garment. Once we unpin the pattern from the fabric, in this case I'm going to suggest that we do the shoulders first. It's important to take from the pattern how much of a seam allowance we are going to take. When we saw in this case it's a half of an inch. To just double check that the length of the shoulders is the same and that the notches that we cut earlier match. So we can see we are good with that. So the first seam that we need to finish is the shoulder seam. So we're going to do the overlock stitch, having the front of the dress facing us. Just being careful that we don't shave too much. Just getting rid of all the threads that are already coming off the fabric. For the second shoulder, we're going to continue having the front of the dress facing us. So now we started from the center. So now we are going to press the shoulder seams. We're going to place the fabric flat on the pressing board, just being sure that nothing gets caught underneath. So now we're going to do the side seams. We're going to join the dress for the side. And we start the same, few stitches back and forth. And we're going to take the same seam allowance as we did for the shoulder that was indicated on the pattern. Yeah. The neckline is a curve, and in this case, the designer is requiring to use a inside binding. So we are going to cut a piece of fabric, a strip of fabric, on a 45-degree angle, and cutting it that way is going to help us to create a very smooth curve without wrinkles or tucks. Bias tape is a strip of fabric that we cut a 45-degree angle, and that is going to help us to have a smooth curve finish all around. So here is our bias tape. As we can see, with the stretch, it's going to help us to create a smoother curve for the neckline. We are going to apply the bias tape onto the neckline. So starting from the wearer's left side, the shoulder seam. So first we are going to fold our bias tape in half, and we are going to place the edge right above the shoulder seam, probably 3/8 of an inch, and we can pin it there. So now we're going to start sewing about 1.5 inches below that pin. So what we're doing here is we're leaving this unsewn, so we have room to join it once we go around applying the bias tape, okay? So where you can sew it, starting from here to maybe a little bit less of 1/4 of an inch, so we have as much as fabric possible to be able to turn and have a clean edge. Probably the width of the presser foot.
Yet.
It would be a good line to follow. And we want to be careful to not stretch the bias too much, because it will become narrow, and also when we turn it and sew it, the top stitch might make it shrink. So once we stopped our stitching here, we are going to place our bias tape, still folded in half, all the way down to the shoulder seam, pin it, and from there we are going to give it an extra 3/8 of an inch to be able to have seam allowance to join it to the other end of the bias. So once you have it marked, we keep our pin right there where it was. You can open it, and we just need to be sure that we follow the same direction of the diagonal line as we have on the other end. And following this line, we're going to cut along the grain, which it would be that we are doing a diagonal line again. We can edit this a little, but right here. You can pin it. And now we're going to join it at 3/8, and this should match the beginning and the end. And if you have to, you can shift it around a little bit. And then that should end right there. Okay. So now we are going to do an edge stitch along the entire seam of the bias. So now we are going to cut or trim the extra pieces of fabric that we have there. So we can cut those corners first. And then we're just going to press it so we can set our top stitch and the line looks more cleaner. So now we are going to top stitch the bias onto the dress from the outside, and it would be the last step for the bias tape. So to finish the bias on the neckline, we are going to fold it in, and we're going to top stitch it at 1/4 inch from distance from the edge to the sewing line. And we're just going to be sure that we do a straight line so we look really good from the outside. Now we are going to do the side seams. Continuing with our fabric, with our pieces laid one on top of the other, we are going to double check that the length of the side seam is the same. And also we are going to do it at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once we have that, we're going to stop here, finish these edges with a mirror machine, and press them towards the back of the dress as well. We want to start with the bottom, and we're going to do what we call a baby hem, which is turning 1/4 inch or maybe less than 1/4 twice, and top stitch it all along the edge, all the way around. We're going to continue doing that for the rest of the hem, the bottom of the dress, and we can go along cutting, if needed, extra thread or extra fabric. That is on our way to create a clean line for the bottom of the dress. And we're going to use the same method for the finishing of the sleeve opening.